Salvation Army Secondary School Akbc to be taken over by government soon. NNPC Limited hikes pump price of petrol to 670 naira. Federal government warns Nigerians over outbreak of anthrax epidemic. Old boys from 4 more schools lock hands for late prelate ban. Details shortly. A very good afternoon to you and welcome to Akbc 4/5 News at noon. I am Ofort Udokan. Now the news in detail. As part of efforts towards efficient service delivery in the education sector, the state government has expressed willingness to take over the Salvation Army Secondary School Akbc in Nsrubion local government area. Governor Moino gave the indication, mentioning that the Cottage Hospital Akbc is one of the 6 cottage hospitals in the state to be taken over, or to be given a facelift rather. Government House reporter Patience John completes the story.
Governor Moino, who acknowledged that the Salvation Army Secondary School has produced Greater Akwa people, expressed the intention of his administration to take over the school and thanked the Salvation Army for establishing and maintaining the school over the years.
We like to work with the Salvation Army School. Let government partner with you. Hand over the school to government. I believe that we won't change the name. We will just ensure that we partner with you to work with this. If we have all these leaders attend this school, they were there, and it's good we just make them happy.
The state's chief executive equally undertook an inspection of the Cottage Hospital Akbc, where he regretted the poor state of the institution and promised government's intervention to enable the health facility serve its purpose to the people. Governor Moino added that incentives and social amenities will be provided at the facility for doctors' convenience.
We renovate their quarters, we give them basic amenities.
And once I'm around an area, we try to add some other things to it to make that worth the while. So I needed to see this facility. I actually thought it was a primary health facility, but it's the Spirit of God that brought me here. This is pathetic. This is pathetic. So what we are going to do, I've requested the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Health, to let us see the hospitals, cottage hospitals. We'll intervene in about 6 immediately, and that intervention will try and fix up the cottage hospitals.
Patience John, Akbc News.
As the international community marks the 2023 Nelson Mandela Day, the need for leaders at all levels to discharge their responsibilities with selflessness has been advocated. Nelson Mandela Day was declared by the United Nations to mark the birthday of the first black president of South Africa, given his contributions to international peace and equality. Etienne in the following report x-rays the life and times of Nelson Mandela and his impact on the society.
There are many people who feel that it is useless and futile for us to continue talking peace and non-violence against a government whose reply is only savage attacks on an unarmed and defenseless people.
Nelson Mandela was an anti-apartheid activist and the former first black president of South Africa. He was born Rolilela Mandela on July 18, 1918 in a rural village of Mveso. A descendant of a Tambo royal family, Mandela's father served as a local chief and counsel to the king. His devout Christian mother enrolled him in a Methodist school where he was given the English name Nelson. After his father's death, the 12-year-old Mandela was brought to the central area of Tambo monarchy to be raised by the king's region. Living among the royals exposed him to a powerful example of black leadership that remained the source of influence throughout his life. There, he became involved in an anti-colonial and African nationalist politics, joining the ANC in 1943 and co-founding its Youth League in 1944. This national party swiftly cracked down on our efforts, jailing Mandela and banning him from the ANC. In 1956, Mandela and 155 colleagues were tried for treason, but later acquitted. Mandela became convinced that apartheid would not fall without armed resistance. In 1961, he formed the MK militant branch of the ANC that committed targeted acts of sabotage against the government and its military. However, on August 1962, Mandela was captured, charged with conspiracy, received a life sentence and incarcerated in Robben Island, but he remained a symbol of black South African resistance. During his years behind bars, Madiba continued his fight on a smaller scale, organizing against the prison's inhuman conditions through demonstrations and teachings. Calls for his freedom gradually drew global attention. Finally, in 1990, after 27 years, Mandela was released from prison. South Africa held his first election in 1994 and the Freetown National Congress, led by Mandela, won in a landslide. At the end of his first term in 1999, Mandela retired from politics. He continued to commit himself to activism, particularly to the humanitarian crisis. In 2013, Mandela died of respiratory infection at the age of 95. In recognition of his contributions to peace and culture, the United Nations in 2009 designated July 18 as International Nelson Mandela Day to celebrate his birthday and also to commemorate the fight against racism and apartheid.
Each year, on Nelson Mandela's birthday, we pay tribute to an extraordinary global advocate for equality, dignity and solidarity. Madiba was a moral giant of the 20th century, whose timeless legacy continues to guide us today.
The theme for this year's celebration is
climate, food and solidarity.
Some respondents paid glowing tributes to Nelson Mandela as an instrument of peace, emphasizing the need for leaders to be selfless in the discharge of duties.
We have to emulate the potentials of our late father Nelson Mandela. As a public office holder, we should learn to be selfless and to put people first in all we do, as Nelson Mandela did.
The man who fought for freedom. Freedom is something you can't buy. And so I learned we should allow ourselves, we should express ourselves. There should be no disparity, black and white. We are all the same.
I would really like our Africans, and especially society and as well as our Nigerian leaders, to emulate the leadership quality of Nelson Mandela, of selflessness. We go into political positions not for our own self, but for the people.
It was a forefront for us on gender equality, and my opinion is that the leaders of today should actually imbibe them.
Etienne Ibanga, Akbc News.
Winners of the essay competition for students in senior secondary schools across Akwa Ibom State, organized by Akbc Radio Academic Program, the Academy, have been presented with prizes. The presentation was part of activities marking the 2023 World Public Relations Day, held by the Public Relations Unit of AKBC in conjunction with the state chapter of the Institute. Esther Morin reports that the essay writing aims at assessing the students' knowledge of public relations as well as the relationship between the media and the society.
From the assessment reviews by the panel of judges of the National Institute of Public Relations, NIPR, as read out by the coordinator of the Radio Academic Program, Mrs. Mercy David, Ms. Favor Basi John of Oforukwa Secondary School, Mayakno David of Bright Stars Model Secondary School, and Inewborn Kingsley of Bright Stars Model Secondary School, Uyo, emerged overall best candidates in the competition.
We needed them to understand certain things in writing an essay. So we sent out the scripts to the judges who happen to be teachers, lecturers in the university. And today we have those people who have been selected as having met the top 4. We'll be handing over prizes to our children who had been part of public relations.
Favor Basi John emerged first with 80%. Mayakno David second with 65%, and Inewborn Kingsley third with 50%. Gift items, cash prizes as well as certificates were presented to the winners at the AKBC transmitting station Ntagiyan by the Director General AKBC, Pastor Eneti Upe, a fellow of the NIPR, and a former state chairman, NIPR, Aparawa Okonime, who both congratulated the winners.
The Quorum Broadcasting Corporation of the Academy 2023 essay writing competition marking World Public Relations Day. This certificate is proudly presented to for taking the first position in essay writing. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
We would like to encourage you, thank God age is on your side, and then you plan that your future will have a big chunk of PR.
In their separate responses, the winners expressed joy for being part of the program and thanked the organizers for the privilege given them.
Happy and delighted and of course privileged to be here.
I feel really overwhelmed. I consider this a great privilege.
A nice package living secondary school, so I'm grateful for AKBC for the opportunity.
The program received the support of Water Clean Nigeria Limited, producers of Asan Water, Ikorepene, Chairman, Akwa Ibom State Chapter, NIPR, Mr. Nsemeke Udokpan, Director General, AKBC, Dr. Aniete Ukwe, Director Programs, AKBC, Mrs. Magdalene Udokan, and Dr. Bernard Dixon, Department of English, University of Uyo. Esther Morin, AKBC News.
Still to come, federal government warns of anthrax outbreak in Nigeria. This and more when we return. Stay with us.
This is our home, where we all belong. The place where life is beautiful. The peaceful ambience we enjoy when we live together in unity and love. It's all man, you know. We go stand together, we go make them better. We be brothers and sisters, no matter where we be. You know. It's all man, you know. No matter where we be, we are one. Let's live together in peace and harmony.
Yeah, welcome back to the news. The federal government owned NNPC Limited on Tuesday morning jacked up its petrol pump price to 617 naira per litre from 535 naira in Abuja. The National Oil Company has not given any reason for the latest price increase following the regulation of the downstream sector of the Nigerian oil and gas industry, with NNPC Limited taking the lead. Most marketers, which opened earlier dispensing at the old rate, hurriedly shut their stations to adjust their pump price to the new price. President Bola Tinubu on Monday 29 during his inaugural speech said there was no going back and that the money was not in the budget for the payments of petrol subsidy. The pronouncement led to the hike in petrol price from 195 naira per litre to 537 naira per litre. The federal government said the risk assessment conducted by the human health sector showed that the likelihood of an outbreak of anthrax disease in the country is high. The federal government also said that the potential impact of the disease on humans is high. These were made known on Monday night in a joint press statement signed by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Chief Veterinary Officer of Nigeria, Dr. Colombo Vaccaro, and the Director General of National NCDC, Dr. Ifadeyo Adefeta. The government, however, noted that it has activated the accident management system at levels 2 with an incident manager appointed for effective coordination of the response. Earlier, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development confirmed one case of anthrax disease in a mixed livestock farm in Niger State. This is the first animal case to be reported in Nigeria since the beginning of the West Africa outbreak in Ghana in June 2023. The Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development said on June 13, 2023, the sudden death of livestock in this farm with 8 mortality was reported, and the animal who died were observed to have been bleeding from external orifice without blood clothing. A group of human rights lawyers have commenced contempt proceedings against the Director General of the State Security Service, Yusuf Bichi, over alleged disobedience to multiple judgments and orders of the court directing the release of the suspended Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele from custody of the agency. They have filed a contempt charge seeking to commit the DSS chief to prison in line with provisions of the law on violation of law order of a contempt court. Form 48, which is the notification of consequence of disobedience to a court order, and Form 49, which seeks to commit an alleged contempt to prison, were filed before the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, Abuja, on Monday. The lawyers, led by Maxwell Okpara and Barrister Abdulaziz Tijani, prayed the court to commit DSS Director General to prison until he purges himself of the contempt. In an affidavit in support of the application, the lawyers disposed to the fact that Justice M.A. Hassan restrained the respondents in that suit, particularly the State Security Service, from arresting, detaining, or interrogating Emefiele for offenses connected to terrorism financing, money laundering, round-tripping, financial crimes of national security dimension, among others. They asserted that despite the clear and positive orders of Justice Hassan, the State Security Service still went ahead to arrest and detain Emefiele, and had detained him for well over a month while shopping for evidence. Speaking with the legal decision, Maxwell Okpara said the group will pursue the matter to its logical conclusion to serve as a deterrent to other heads of security agencies and top government officials, that contempt of court and gross abuse of office for personal vendetta will no longer be tolerated. And now sports. Old Boys of Hope Water Training Institute Calabar, resident in Uyo, and their Methodist Boys High School Oron counterpart, two famous and oldest secondary schools east of the Niger, will today lock hands in a novelty football match. The match is part of activities lined up for the funeral of a former teacher and an illustrious old boy of the Methodist Boys High School Oron, Commander Order of the Niger, Prelate Emeritus Methodist Church Nigeria, His Eminence Dr. Sunday Kofi Mbang. The testimonial match, which will renew the sacred rivalry between the two schools, will be played at the Shelter Freak Field by 2:30 p.m. A statement released by the organizer of the event jointly enjoined all old boys of the two premier institutions, including old boys in skirts, residents of Uyo and environs, to watch encounter. An ex-staff of the radio arm of the Akbc, Pastor Osoni Akbc Alfred, also known as Larry, is expected to lead the Methodist Boys High School, and Deacon Edem Asani, Director Reportorial Akbc, will marshal the defense. And that's our news this afternoon. But just before we go, we'll take the recap. A group of human rights lawyers have commenced contempt proceedings against the Director General of State Security Service, Akbc, over alleged disobedience of multiple judgments and orders of the court directing the release of the suspended Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele from custody. And that's our news this afternoon. Thanks for being with us. See you again tonight.